Most people end up in a job at ABC company doing a job that they did not dream of as a kid, right? Very few people actually follow their passion and end up doing something that they're, so passionate to wake up in the morning. So if the majority of the workforce at your organization didn't dream about that job, well, why are they really there? What's keeping them there? And it's not the paycheck, because they could get a paycheck somewhere else. And so in this highly competitive, especially since COVID, this highly competitive workplace environment where now company in LA can poach somebody from Minneapolis because they don't have to move their family, right? It's a totally different environment in terms of competition. So there has to be some offering, I believe, from a company of like, what makes working here different? And this is what I found it to be. So the whole idea is that we don't live to work, we work to live.
Welcome back to the Better Than Rich show. We are here today with Dane Espegard, and we've been wanting to get Dane on the podcast for quite some time. He is super busy, so we're finally got a chance to pin him down. You might know him from his Dream Machine book and the workshops that he's done all around the country. I say company because he is in the same company with Vector Marketing and Cutgo. So he's done some workshops for those of us inside of that company. But he is traveling across the country and the world, bringing his Dream Machine initiative to the masses. And it's a very simple process that he walks through. Even in this episode, we get some glimpses and some examples of how he used this system of bottom up, and then puts the emphasis on the development, the personalized of his team member. It's really fascinating how he's been able to do this with his retention and how many examples that he have of what this done for his culture, what this has done for his relationship with his wife. He talked a little bit about the dream of Brooklyn getting a horse ranch, which is really cool, and just building teams around this, building a family around this, how it's helped with retention, how it's helped with A-list talent. So a lot of great conversation topics here with Dane Espegard. I think you're really going to love this. And we even get into the weeds a little bit with mobile home parks and his success with mobile home park investing. So get ready for another great episode with Dane Espegard on the Better Than Rich show. Welcome back to the Better Than Rich show. I'm Mike Abramowitz. I'm here with Andrew Biggs, and we've been trying to get this guest on the show for quite some time. I know many of you have asked when he's coming on the show, and he is here. Dane Espegard from the Dream Machine. I love the book so much. I have two. I double fist this book. Dane, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. I've been looking forward to the conversation also.
Well, I want to dig right in because a lot of our listeners follow your work, and I love the Dream Machine. I think it's a very simple playbook for anybody who runs a business or runs a team can take this book, bring this right into practice. I had the privilege of being a part of one of your Dream workshops, and I just actually went and highlighted from my workshop with you. I have 146 dreams documented on a spreadsheet from the workshop I did with you, and I just absolutely love this concept. What is so fascinating, though, is this is not like a Dane thing. This is not like, oh, my God, Dane is the first guy to talk about dreams. And we had Matthew Kelly come and all this stuff. But you're someone who took this, brought it to your internal team, brought it to your business, and then took that message and turned it into a product that you offer to the public. I would love to explore that because I think a lot of the listeners are business owners, entrepreneurs that have something maybe proprietary or something that they do that's maybe a little unique or something consistent they do with their teams. But then how could they maybe package it up, bring it to the public space, and then share that knowledge and wisdom with other people? If you could walk us through that journey, how you did that, how others might be able to do that, that would be super impactful to kind of get things rolling right away.
Yeah, for sure. So I appreciate the kind words. But yeah, this isn't something that I didn't coin this concept or create this thing. I had the awesome pleasure of sitting through Matthew Kelly's Dreams workshop back in 2007 at a Cutco event, right? And made my list, and it was riveting for me. And I probably looked at it for a couple of months after that. And that's kind of it. And like a lot of things, it gave me a little juice for a few months, and then it got shelved somewhere. And then as I was getting ready to move again and kind of start a team from scratch, I was going through to think, hey, if this were the last time I ever moved for Vector in the last team that I were to start, what would I want that culture to be like and to feel like? And I don't think the first couple of times that I started a team, I was as intentional with how important the culture is, and not just what it is, but what are all the supporting parts of it. And so that's what got me back to the dreams concept. And then 2013, 14, 15, 16, I kept kind of evolving it just within our own team. It started out with just me asking people to do workshops, right? With, hey, let's make 30 minutes on your dreams list. Let's add some stuff to it. And the one thing from the get-go that I was really intentional about was that I'm going to live my dreams out loud. And so, the leader, speed of the leader type of deal, where it's, if I really want this to take hold of my organization, I've got to do it myself. So then we evolved the Dreams Retreat, which is the full-on, day and a half event that we run for our team. And as I was doing that, I got to see some massive benefits within the retention of our team, but then also not just the retention, but the performance. And it was really interesting because now my conversations with my team members weren't about production. They were about what the production means to their lives. And that's what, you guys in Vector, it's like, that's what's always made Vector great, has been the connection on the personal level to people. And so I felt like this was such a great shortcut for me to be able to really put our conversation, the focus of that where I want it to be, which is on them. And so now we were having conversations about sales, but it was all down to, great, when you do this, this is what it provides for you. So to get to the question of how did I take this then to a outside world from Vector, it definitely, like, for the last 3 years before I brought this out to in the form of the book, I was thinking, hey, if I were to bring this to other companies, what needs to be buttoned up, right? So in other words, I've been doing it in my organization. So what I do, nobody can just hop right into that necessarily, because there's been years of buildup for that. So if I were to shift this to be something that a business owner could take and say, oh, I could do this really easily, what would that look like? So I'd say the last 2-3 years before the book, I was kind of putting the tweaks on it, if you will, so that it would be usable by somebody who's not a Vector. And then I didn't know how I was going to bring this out to the world. And then Justin Donald, great friend of mine, I think he was on the pod. Justin, he and I snuck away to a buddy trip, just the two of us, to Montana in the summer of 2020, at the end of the summer with COVID. And he was finishing up his book edits on that trip. And he was like, you need to write a book. And I said, I don't have time to write a book. And Justin's the one who introduced me the idea of getting help in the book writing process. I use Scribe. So that, but then also that should be the way that it gets out to the public. And so I left that, cool trip with Justin. I came home. I said, hey, babe, I want to write a book. She's like, cool, I think you should do that. And I didn't expect that. And so I want to say it was 12 months later that the published book was out and ready to go. So I knew once the book was out, I'd be able to get, opportunities to engage with other organizations and stuff around the Dreams workshops.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love the concept of the dream machine, dream workshop, making sure people are attuned to their dreams and then pursuing their dreams inside your organization. Why does this matter? And if I'm leading a team, I've worked in a lot of different cultures. In fact, you and I come from the same culture in the Vector background, but then I went to a very different culture right afterwards. It was a lot more stick and a lot less carrot, we could say. And when I tried to influence the leadership team to adopt some of these concepts, they were very averse to doing so, right? Yeah. I was kind of the one person in the room pounding the table for encouragement and dreaming and self-development and stuff. But, you have made it second nature inside your organization. So I guess that's the question, like, why does it matter? And then what actually do you do? Like, what is a dreams workshop and what's the core premise of the Dream Machine?
Yeah, I think a great question. Why does this matter? Because, I use myself as an example. I didn't grow up and say I want to work at a cutlery company, but yet I've been there for 22 years, right? And I would say that's the norm in society. Most people end up in a job at ABC company doing a job that they did not dream of as a kid, right? Very few people actually follow their passion and end up doing something that they're, so passionate to wake up in the morning. So if the majority of the workforce at your organization didn't dream about that job, well, why are they really there? What's keeping them there? And it's got to be, it's not the paycheck, because they could get a paycheck somewhere else. And so in this highly competitive, especially since COVID, this highly competitive workplace environment where now company in LA can poach somebody from Minneapolis because they don't have to move their family, right? It's a totally different environment in terms of competition. So there has to be some offering, I believe, from a company of like, what makes working here different? And, in Vector and Cutco, super high turnover. And so for me, it was, what's that thing that's going to keep somebody here and excited? And this is what I found it to be. So the whole idea is that we don't live to work, we work to live. And so if I believe in that, I need to figure out how to connect this to what their life is. And so many businesses still operate out of this like 70s, 80s, and 90s mentality, which is you have a work life and a home life. And we just know that's not accurate. And when we can combine the two and speak to the individual, I think that's where we really get some big wins in relationships. Right?
Yeah. If I'm hearing you right, it's like your business is a vehicle to help you pursue the things that you really want to achieve or become outside of the vehicle being the business. And if you can, not only as the business owner, make sure it's explicit for you, because you, Dane, have tons of dreams, and I'd love for you to even rattle off some of those cool ones, like that I read in the book with the horses with your wife, and some of the cool things that you're able to do. Those are real examples for you that you've leveraged your business as the owner to pursue and achieve the dreams that you want. Yeah. And then you also leverage your, like Alex Funk, for example, a mutual connection from Vector, one of your proteges, who's checking off all these boxes, rental units. He's a young hustler in his early 20s, checking off dreams list, but using his business as a vehicle to check off those dreams while simultaneously helping people inside of his organization check off their dreams. So there's this like compound beautiful effect. So number one, I guess if you want to unpack anything there, it's like, what were some of those dreams that you as the business owner, you were able to use your business as a vehicle to pursue for you? And what, two, any of the proteges, any examples that you've had on what that's done for them? I'd love to hear some of these.
Yeah, for sure. It has been, it's interesting because I think that and again, this is my story but when I grew up in the business, I looked at other people in the business and said, I want their life, right? They travel a lot. I got a large team. They're producing. They're clearly doing well. They look like they love life. But what happened for me anyways is as I kind of climbed the ranks and had more success in life, what I started to do was actually dumb down what I was doing. In other words, hey, if I'm going to go on a cool 10-day vacation somewhere awesome, I didn't want to flaunt that to the team because I knew, well, I'm the owner, I'm the boss. They probably don't have the same time autonomy or finances to do the same thing. So there was a weird feel with that. Well, what I was unknowingly doing in that was wrecking their opportunity to see the full opportunity that I have, right? And so do they. And so with the dreams framework, what I love about it is it gives the owner of the organization, in this case, me on my team, full permission to share unapologetically. Because when I'm cheering the people on my team to go live the life of their dreams, when I say, hey guys, I'm going to be off the grid, we're going on and actually next week, we're going to go on a 1-month RV trip. Hey guys, I'm going on a 1-month RV trip. And next year we're trying to figure out how to do 3 months. And my team is fired up about that because I'm supporting them in their dreams. And so there's some really neat openness that happens when I'm living mine out loud, but also because I've been cheering them on that they want that. Mike, you asked the question of like the proteges. It is awesome to see these individuals who are younger attack their dreams with so much more vigor than what I had at the time, because I just didn't have all of the same framework around it. So, you mentioned Alex. That guy just messaged me the other day. He was having a tough day. I was actually running a workshop at another organization. It's weird how these things happen, right? He texted me in the middle of my dreams workshop and he goes, I just reflected. My life is pretty awesome. I've accomplished 380 dreams since working here in 2019. And then he listed off, I own these. It was basically just him like hyping himself up. But I was like, that is so awesome that this sub 25-year-old is able to go through and say, I've done 380 things in my life that I was intentional ahead of time, that I knew would bring me joy and fulfillment, that I went out and did. And that's what this is about. If a guy like Alex Funk, man, that guy's a world talent. I don't think he's staying at in that role as long as he's had, unless he's being engaged on that level, right? Because we're touching 9 different categories: travel, material, adventure, faith, relationships. We go through all those different things. So it's really, we're moving Alex forward in all categories of his life, not just in work.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I know people can join these dream workshops. I'm curious. Can you give us a little taste now, like for a listener driving in their car right now or on the treadmill at the gym? Like, what are some examples of questions you might ask to uncover their dreams? I'm curious if you could give us a little taste.
Page 131, listener. Go pick up the book.
So when I do the
Go
workshops, man, the workshops are so much fun. I get a ton of energy from doing them. But basically, it is a brainstorming process that I take people through with. I haven't tracked it, but my gut is I probably give somewhere between 700 to 800 prompts during the workshop. So I take them through 9 categories. I usually start with travel, and so I go through every part of the world and just. The idea here is this is an abundance exercise. This isn't, I know I want to do this. This isn't, who cares how you're going to do it? Who cares about the money? Who cares about when? Just, would you get energy if you got to travel to this place? So we go domestic, we go international. I talk about all those. I start with travel because I think it's easiest to get a lot down on that. Then we go through adventure, we go through material. The career one is interesting, career and finances. So I'll take people through that. I take my Vector team through it, and I encourage them to write down other careers that they want. And it's interesting as I've been hired to go do this with other companies. And at first I was like, should I clear that with the person paying me beforehand? And I just decided, no, that's out of the spirit of what this is. And so when I go through that, I always have them, hey, pick some objectives, some things that you've had your eye on within your current role or organization. But what are other things that you've entertained the idea of? Right? What other businesses you've thought about starting? What are some net worth goals? Maybe it's something as simple as get out of debt. Maybe it's save your first 5,000. Maybe it's buy your first property. Tying this back, Mike, you'd asked, I think it was Mike that asked a couple of mine, but I've used my business to be able to fund other financial objectives, like buying my first mobile home park, buying another mobile home park, right? Like that stuff wouldn't have happened if I didn't have the vehicle of my main income source. And also if I wasn't intentional with the dreams list to say, these are things that I also want to accomplish. Because it's really easy in life. And you guys know this as dads and husbands, it's really easy in life for us to just switch between the hats that we have, which is our main job or main business, dad hat, husband hat, and that fills our time. And if we're not really intentional about, the stretch of I'm excited about more, then we just stay in that exact same place. And it's very normal in the world for somebody to look back and blink and say, where'd the last 5 years go? And that's something I've been deathly terrified of. I want to be able to say at the end of every year, that was the best year I've ever had. And not just from a gut feeling, but I can actually look and say, look at all the dreams I did this year. Not only was that my best year, I have so much confidence going into the next year that's going to be even better.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. Go ahead. I mean, one question that's coming up for me is just like, you mentioned these like an Alex, right? This A player on your team. And of course, there's a lot written about frustrations in the workforce, how to attract top tier talent, but not only that, how to keep top tier talent. Would you say that this is like your number one strategy for attracting and retaining top talent? Would you go so far as to say that, or what would you say?
I think retaining the talent, this is number one. And I would actually say my relationship with them is number one, but this is at the heart of our relationship. So I think I could have a great relationship with them without this, but this is the best cheat sheet I've ever seen. So picture this, right? If you own your own business, you have employees, you have team members, I know, I have all their dreams lists. So I have 9 categories of their life, all of the things that would give them energy, the things that would stretch them, the things that maybe they're scared to do. I have a list of all of it. So if I want to engage that person, if I want to give a gift and show some appreciation or throw out a sales challenge or a contest, it's like none of that is wasted. It's all like hits right in the target because I know what I'm working with instead of just the random, like, I should tell this person thank you. It's like, I can be so much clearer when I have that at my disposal. Right. So I think that really is the main thing, is that this supports the relationship in the best way.
I have a follow up to that. Have you explored doing this with like clients? Like, so for example, let's say you know, with Vector, it's a little unique because it's like we're building a team, we have our recruits,
Yep.
but let's say you go like, I think about a real estate agent, you know, would you recommend a real estate agent having a dreams activity with their client and seeing how they can, hey, when we sell your house and we help you make an extra 40 grand, let's do a dreams exercise and think about what all the shit that we could do with that extra 40 grand. Like, do you see that potentially in practice from that type of relationship? I'm curious on that.
I think it could be. I think the one-on-one, like to fully work out a dreams list, it typically takes, a few hours. And the reason though, there's a lot of people that aren't used to dreaming. So I relate it a lot to like going to the gym, whereas dreaming's a muscle. There are people that when I do the dreams workshops, I can watch them and it is like the first 10, 15, 20 minutes, they're like, doing this number. And then by the end, they're cruising. But if they haven't used those muscles in a while. So where I have seen it work really well, Mike, is, I have some clients that are like mortgage companies and real estate companies that have had me come in, do a workshop, and they have invited their strategic partners, clients. So it's been, Guild Mortgage, for instance. I did one for the Guild Mortgage team, their support staff. There were some husband and wives there, and then all of their partners in any way they want to do it by. Because it was basically for them, it was, hey, I may as well have this be an offering for as many people as possible. And then, going back to the next year is really cool because now there's people that had their list from last year and they're adding to that list. Like what I do at my team, I do, we're recording this right now. I leave in 2 days to go to my team's annual dreams workshop. We call it the Dreams Retreat. And it's like the iconic event for our organization each year.
Well, I just want to say for the listener, I already mentioned I did this exercise with Dane and highly recommend you to do your version of a dream storming session as well. I actually have this in Your Best Year Ever, Grab Tomorrow, Your Best Year Ever, my first book. There's a dream storming session. So this is like something I'm super, super passionate about from the lineage of Matthew Kelly. But from your workshop specifically, I was in a tough spot. This is something that you might not know, Dane, on how helpful and impactful this was for me. Our listeners might, but you might not. One of the activities that I went through from your dreams session, because you said you kind of started this 2020. Well, 2021, I was in the hospital. And one of the things that I saw from the sidelines that you were doing and you were bringing to the marketplace, I was like, you know what? That's a great reminder for me. So I started doing some of those activities. That's, again, probably why I have 2 of your books. But I'm looking at my list. I made a list of 53 items from your workshop that I wanted to do with James while James was in an incubator. So while my son was in an incubator, I was making a list of all the things, all the activities that I want to do as my dreams to do with James. And that was something that I read to him every day, even though like we couldn't talk, he couldn't touch or anything. But it was just something to keep me focused, to keep me thinking and keep me positive and have this vision and these dreams to pursue. And one of the dreams was to take him to Disney World. And we're actually just booked our trip to Disney World in September. So in actually 6 weeks from now, we're going on a family trip, character breakfast, like the whole works, taking him to Magic Kingdom and doing the whole Halloween thing. And I just want to say, like, to what you're doing and what you're providing to your team and these sub 25-year-olds as a 38-year-old who's done this so many times, it is just as impactful for me. This time I did it, 2 years ago when I did it, 20 years ago when I did this. I just want to say thank you because number one, I don't know if you knew that. And number two, I think this is something that gives people this light of something to work towards, because there's too often that we just get up and supposed to check these boxes today, and we lose that vision and that purpose behind and that meaning as well. So I know, Andrew, you wanted to say something as well, but I wanted to capture that for Dane.
Well, I had a thread, but honestly, that was so much better than mine. That was awesome. Like writing your dreams down, reading them to your son, thinking about things you want to do with your kids. These are just amazing ideas. And so hopefully, listener, you're getting ideas of what your dreams are, and you're not afraid to be unashamed, right? Unapologetic about how big they are. One thing that comes up for me, Dane, is, okay, cool, I got these dreams. What about the how? Like, do you ever get like the naysayer, or how important is the how? I mean, of course, we might say when the why is big enough, the how reveals itself, or something like that. But you also strike me as someone who is a tactician. You're in an industry that does have volatility, but you don't seem to experience that volatility. I notice you continually always crushing at the top of your industry, and now in other industries as well. So you got to have some chops, some systems chops, some business chops that you could also share with the listeners. And I'm curious if you wouldn't mind, opening up the kimono there, and in terms of some of the how strategies to actually make these dreams a reality. Because if I have a dream to take 3 months off, well, I got to make sure my business is running for 3 months then while I'm away, So what would you say to that?
You're totally right on that. But before I hop on that, Mike, thank you for sharing. That does mean a lot. And I think that when people go through the dreams workshop, what I have noticed is that you could do it every single year, and every year it hits different because you're in a different season. And there are certain times where, because of where exactly Mike was at, he was like 53 things that I want to do with James. And it's like, 5 years prior to that, his dreams list would have looked very different, right, than that. And so I think that the seasons of it is why it's important for us to practice that every year and say, hey, I need to get back to my dreams list, But Andrew, your question, you're totally right. I do believe that what makes this special is that we're not actually talking about the how. Because the how, what it does is it pulls away from all of these awesome things. The second we start getting realistic, living an awesome life is not realistic. It's really not, right? If somebody were to say, hey, here's what I want my life to be, a 10 out of 10 in my marriage. I want us to be just like, best friends, passionate lovers. I want to go on regular dates and trips away with my wife, and I want all that. And then I want to have, X amount of kids. And I just want to be so engaged with the kids and add all their activities and coaching their activities and taking these dad-daughter dates and doing these things. And man, I want that. In the workplace, I want to just own a lot of businesses that are just crushing it. I want to just be 10 out of 10 success in all of these. With my investments, I want them all making me money and while I'm sleeping, and some passive cash flow. And for my health, I just want to be in the best shape. That's unrealistic, right? You could go on and on. I could go into the faith and all these things, and it's like, that's not realistic. That's not the average. That's not the norm that we get to see. So the second we start bringing in how into the conversation, it's so easy for somebody to switch from abundance to scarcity, right? And it's immediately, I don't know how. It's like, we're not supposed to know how. I don't know how to do a lot of the things that are on my dreams list, but I have it on there. And I know that it's like, knock certain ones off the list, I get more equipped to be able to handle bigger and bigger and bigger ones. And so, one of the books I'm reading right now, I love Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy, but the 10X is easier than 2X. And the whole idea, we have to think different about, I'll just say our future life in order to get different results. We can't just say, I'm going to get more hours to something. So the idea of, Andrew, I want to take 3 months off. How does my business? That's actually where the magic is. So in other words, I don't talk to the people on my team necessarily about growth. It's about, what do you see for yourself this next year? So to answer your question, it's all in the planning. It's the same planning that I would normally do, but now it's coming from the place of the dreams that you want to get done. So Andrew, if you're on my team, it's, hey, what would fire you up next year for a sales objective? That's normally what it would be. Okay, let's break it down. Let's look at where your strengths and weaknesses and opportunities are, and we go through all that. Instead, now it's, Andrew, let's talk about the dreams list, right? Let's say it's November. That's a good time that I would be saying, hey, Andrew, let's go over your dreams list. What do you see for yourself in 2024? What are the dreams that you want to get done? and you're going through it and you're like, I think I could do this. I think I could do this. And then we're now having a conversation about calendar. How much money do you need to make? How much do you need to save? What are the steps for this? And so now I'm not this person's business manager. I'm a life mentor, right? And I'm giving them accountability. We're laying out steps of maybe buying a property, and none of that works if you're not performing at work. If you have a down year, Andrew, these things are difficult. I don't need to say that to you. You get it. You understand, like, ooh, this is a big year that I'm looking to do. And what's great with this is then there's always this freedom that comes with it to say, hey, Andrew, by the way, if you don't hit this business number, I really don't care at the end of the day. If you get these dreams done, I'm so fired up for you and for your family in terms of what you're experiencing. And so I think that's really, there is planning, but it's not planning out every dream necessarily. It's helping them see how it gets integrated, right? I think that's the big piece.
I love that. And I feel like there's some strategy there. I think about, your role specifically, you're a division manager, so you have district managers underneath you. And it's like, if a district manager underneath you has these really cool dreams, but they're also a cog in their machine because they're doing everything. They're running every interview, they're running every training, they're doing every PR call, they're doing every coaching call. It's like, great, I have these dreams I want to pursue, but I'm also a cog in my business machine. So I got to lead to believe that there's some strategy in how to delegate properly. There's got to be something on, I know you said putting a plan together, but inside that plan, there's got to be proper delegation. There's got to be, hey, these are the technologies or tools that I like to put in place to win back some time. I feel like there's a little bit of innovation that you've added into your business structure that I'd love for you to just kind of riff on a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a natural part of the conversation, which is, hey, if you want to do these things, you can't be the business, right? But I also do this with our CSPs, who much of what they do is the business, right? In other words, I got to be there at the booth to sell. They obviously are able to do marketing and whatnot, but it's a little different than the district manager position. But we will go through with them to say, hey, what dreams do you have? Great. You want to take a 2-week vacation? What's going to happen for your business during those 2 weeks? What people do you need in place? Why is development important? Who do you have to partner with? And what I like about how this is not a one-on-one conversation, this is a team culture, is that if Andrew's on the same team as Mike's the district manager, Andrew's an up-and-comer in the organization, he's going to hear me at a meeting recognize and say, I cannot wait. Mike and his family have a dream trip coming up. They're going to Disney World, and this has been on their list for a long time. They're taking a full week off. And you know what? I will say this at a meeting. What I love about this for Mike is that this is a dream that he's had for his family that he's going to be able to go out and live. And by the way, he's paying that with hard-earned Vector dollars, right? He's taking time off. He didn't have to ask and clear it with me, right? He's going to do this on his own. And Andrew, you might not know this, but Andrew's going to be doing a lot of activities that Mike would normally do, or whatever the case is. Andrew's going to be holding the fort down, building the business here. So Andrew, you actually have a role in helping Mike accomplish a dream. And what's great, Andrew, is you develop more in the business, you're going to be on both sides of that. You're going to be able to experience your own dreams. Other people are going to help you. And so a lot of this is teamwork. And so we're rooting each other on in what we're doing. But at the same time, we're also recognizing that, I'm affording other people the opportunity to accomplish their dreams as that happens. So Andrew, you're going to step into the district manager role. While you do that, you're going to be stretched. You're going to be stressed, right? But what that's doing is preparing you for the next opportunity to also be able to live bigger dreams. And so it's interesting because I'm able to continually
I love
advertise
these threads here,
what's happening, but I'm also able to get everybody on board with supporting that person as they go out and pursue their dream.
Yeah, I love the threads here, and listener, like that was a masterclass in culture building and making sure that you are really tying people in. It's like teamwork. What is teamwork? Dane just did a great example of what that looks like. So if you want to create more teamwork, camaraderie, collaboration, that's really what you need to do. Is to go back and script that out and make sure that you're using that inside your organization. I also want to just make sure I want to capture for the listener this idea of, hey, by the way, these are your dreams. It's actually up to you if you want to hit these or not. I'm not attached. but it's up to you to follow through. And then I'm just going to be holding you accountable to your dreams, because so often as a leader, a lot of our job sometimes comes down to accountability, right? Did you do what you said you were going to do, right? Only part of our job is to actually plan and be strategic. That's that one meeting, right? A year, or that one meeting a quarter, that one meeting a month, where we make decisions. But the rest of the time, right? The rest of the year, the quarter, the month, that's where we're just like, hey, how are you doing on that goal? How are you doing on that dream? What's the progress report? And so often, employees or direct reports complain that it feels like their manager's always on their ass, right? Oh, Dane just wants me to sell so he can make money, so he can go live his dream, so he can have his investments or whatever. And like Dane has completely flipped the script on this, where it's like, I can care, honestly, I'm doing fine. We're going to be fine without you, but I want to see you hit this dream, right? It's for you. And I'm just going to continue to remind you of that. So just an important thing to just make sure we land there. I would love to maybe transition a little bit, Dane, if you don't mind. I know that you have also done a ton, and you're a very successful investor. I know you're big into mobile home parks. I don't know some of the other strategies that you have in terms of investment, but a lot of our listeners, because this is the Better Than Rich show, are interested in those sorts of things. Talk to me about your investing experience, how you think about it, how you go about finding or creating deals. And just what's it been like, taking some of this money that you've earned through, your creation and then putting it to work. What would you say there?
Yeah, I think that for me, I have definitely been more attracted to, we'll call it alternative style investing. And so owning an asset was really entertaining to me and engaging in terms of like, this seems like it is more enjoyable, or there's more to it than me just locking money in the market. Now, in my 20s, I was not a good saver. I was a great spender. And then I ended up, per Justin, Justin's one of my best friends, and said, hey, you should buy a mobile home park. And at that time, my wife and I actually had our first house under contract. And I said, hey, honey, Justin just thought, we should get a mobile home park. What do you think? So we backed out of buying our first house, and we actually bought a mobile home park 6 months later. So we owned a mobile home park while we still rented, for us. So that was kind of our entry, was buying a mobile home park. And then we learned on that one, and we bought a couple more, and now we're looking to get into, I've got a couple other things under contract right now. So when it comes to that, I have had more wins with investing specifically in the mobile home park space than anywhere else. And that is partly because there's cash flow, there's equity build, right? It kind of, no secret to real estate. I'm sure you guys talk about, the opportunities there with that. But what has been really interesting with the mobile home park space is there's a few different ways that you can add value. And it is a market that doesn't really change in terms of like, this is the inventory, this is how many parks are out there, and that's it. I would say a strength of mine, which also has been a weakness, right? I believe our greatest strength can also be our greatest weakness, is my quick trigger. So I'm fast to move. I'm an action taker. So Justin said, you should buy a mobile home park. 2 months later, I was at a boot camp learning how to buy a mobile home park. I asked the guy, Frank Rolfe, hey, of the people, here's like 100 people. How many of these people do you think will actually buy one? And he said probably 10%. And that was in late October, early November. And then by January, we were under contract to buy our first one. So I cold called. I had no problem doing that. The first park, I had no idea what I was doing. And I bought literally what you would think of if somebody said trailer park, like really low quality, bad, right? And so that was my first park. That probably shouldn't have been my first park. I had no idea what I was doing, but I learned on the fly. And even though I made a ton of mistakes, I think we ended up with it was around 45% cash on cash return when we sold it 4 years later. And that was the point where I was like, there's a lot of opportunity here, because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And we just did really well with that. And so we were pretty passive about it. Like, we weren't necessarily out hunting constantly, but we've purchased a few others. And then at the beginning of 2022, 2023, the beginning of this year, we went all in. So we brought somebody in full-time salary. that's handling all of it. So there's less on my plate, but there was also more deals coming through as well as we have that. So we've been using VAs to help us source some lists. And then we have an internal person who does the management and cold calling to source new deals. And then she passes the puck to me when somebody's a warm lead.
It's such a great process. We have one of our clients specifically, he's a front row dad who does that. The VA sources leads, finds different leads for them, books them on calls, and then he has a setter team or like a qualifier team. And then he also has the same process going for hard money lenders. So you could use OPM, other people's money, doing the exact same thing, using VAs to find those, and then kind of connecting the dots. So I absolutely love that strategy. And listener, if you obviously want to explore what that might look like for our team to do that for you, obviously let us know. But Dane, I have a couple of real important strategy questions here that I want to ask, because I asked these to Justin when Justin Donald was on our podcast, but I really want to get, because that was like way back, like last year at this point. So we want some fresh new stuff on mobile home parks. So question number one is, did you have property management company that you had ties to, or someone already to like in place to help you as an operator for the first mobile home park that you bought? Because one of the limiting beliefs is like, great, I buy this park, but now I got to manage a park. Like, what the hell? I know nothing about managing a park. I don't have connections to someone to manage a park. Yeah. Now I just took on another responsibility of a job. So that's a limiting belief there. I also, one of the questions that I asked Justin was, why mobile home parks? You know, I know there's also like storage units has been a really great class too. So we could talk about why. We had Justin Morgan on the podcast. He talked a little bit about that. So I'd love to hear you talk about that as well. And then as far as I asked Justin, he actually role played with me on the podcast. If you want to go into what that cold call script sounded like, you could do that just so we have a fresh take on what that sounds like. So some of those tactical things. And then last one, how much money are we talking that you have to put down? You know, and how much of your own capital versus raising and crowdsourcing other people's capital. So however tactical you can get on some of these, it'd be awesome.
Yeah, I have no problem getting into the weeds. I'm pretty open book when it comes to the dollars behind it too. So first off, why mobile home parks? Because it's a limited resource. In other words, storage facility, that market can get saturated and change all the time, right? So in other words, I could buy a storage facility in a certain town and then 3 more properties could go up, and now all of a sudden there's far more supply of storage than there is demand, right? So now this asset that I bought isn't as valuable as what it was before. Mobile home parks are really I shouldn't say only, the only thing I'm super familiar with that's not going to change. Cities aren't choosing to build new mobile home parks. I think they should, because it's the cheapest home ownership option that's out there, but they have such a negative stigma that they're just not building new ones. And so there's about 44,000 in the US. And they're, economy recession resistant. It's low income housing. For somebody to move, they own the home, but for them to move it, it's $5,000 to $10,000, which is a lot, right? So they, more often than moving, they'll just sell the home to the owner of the park or to somebody else, so it stays in that park. So that's kind of the reason behind why. Did I have property management? No. I mean, I went in, but I'm also somebody who typically has some blind faith of like, I'll figure it out. And I think that serves me more often than it doesn't. But I didn't have any property management ties. Justin, good friend, he owned some, so I knew I could call him, right, to be able to say, hey, need some help, hey, question on this, right? So I had a friend / mentor who was there, phone call away, text away, and he helped a lot with the first one. But man, we were up to our eyeballs and stuff that we didn't necessarily understand what we were doing, like getting new leases. Everybody was paying in cash when we bought the park, which is not what we wanted. Nobody spoke English in our park. Like there was some stuff that we had to deal with, but that's part of the process. And now that I've gone through that, I was able to then have managers, right? And now we have an extra layer, somebody who manages the managers. So I have basically one call a month. That's like an hour where they update me on everything that's going on with the park. And then we set new initiatives and they operate those. So, that cuts into what we make on it, but we bought back our time and those assets are growing and still cash flowing, which is great. I think your third question, was it on the dollars and cents? That was the fourth one.
Yeah, I would love to know. Well, that was the fourth question, but yeah.
So the first park we bought for 350,000, and it was needed a lot of improvement. And let's see, how did we fund that one? I got the seller to carry a small portion of it. So I think he maybe carried 20% of it. And then we put 10% down. And so the bank gave me some partial credit to what the seller was carrying. So we bought that for 35,000 cash out of pocket, right? We turned around, sold it for a large increase 4 years later. One of the most painful lessons for me though, we sold it for 550. The guy who bought it, really experienced, he turned around and sold it the next year for $1 million. So it was a costly lesson for me, but I was nervous to do a lot of the CapEx, right? I knew it needed new roads. I knew it needed but for me, with my experience level, I was like, it's a lot of money. This guy came in through probably 150, 200 grand at the park, fixed it up, relisted it for $1 million, sold it like that. Right. So that gave me a realization of like, I need to spend a little more time on value add than just holding on. Let me give one more fast example, because this one's my favorite. We bought a park for 850. Similar situation. We ended up putting what did we put down? Like 13-14% cash down, because I got the seller to carry a portion of the note again, small amount. That park we had for 2 years. We refinanced it. It went up so much that we were able to, just from that, we were able to pull capital out to purchase a park 3 times the size with no money out of pocket outside of the refinance. So that one purchase led to, a really massive park purchase after that. And that's been the largest part of our net worth, has been the growing valuation of our parks.
So before we get to the cold call script, which I want to hear, and maybe even a cold message template that you might be using, I just want to click on this. So you're saying the first park, $35,000 cash. So if I'm listening, I got $35,000 cash and nothing else. I'm putting that down. I have a conversation with the seller to hold part of the note, which Justin goes into a little bit of that on his episode. And I did some research afterwards of exactly what that means, because it's not anything in my terminology that I would know on like how to have the seller finance and all of those things. The way I understood it and interpreted it is it's like they're loaning, they're fronting it because the park stays in their name essentially if I don't pay them. Is that essentially how that works? So instead of me going to the bank, where the bank would own the park, the owner does?
So if you do fully seller finance, if I bought a park, if you were like, can I buy your park and will you seller finance it? Let's say you were going to pay me $1 million. You're going to give me a down payment, 200,000, and then you're just going to make payments to me with interest. And I would be the first lien holder of the park. So if you default, I get the park back. What I was doing was, I'm going to use the number $1 million. If I'm buying $1 million park from somebody, I was asking them to carry 10 to 15 to 20% of it. So basically I was saying, I'm going to use bank financing. So let's say they agreed to carry 15%. So here's $1 million sale. You, the seller, are going to get 850,000, right? And then you're going to get payments on that last 150. But what some banks will do is they'll give you some conversion of that towards your like cash down, if that makes sense. So that lessened the amount that I had to put cash into buying. And I've been able to get everyone that we've purchased, I've gotten the owner to carry a small low percentage.
I'm so glad I asked that. That's super helpful. Can you go into the cold call message and script? And then I know Andrew wants to talk a little bit about family before we start heading for the exits.
So we don't do any messaging at this point. We're just doing cold call, and it's less noisy in that. There's more people that do the messaging, more people that do the postcards, and I think it probably makes sense to do all of them. But we pick the less traveled path, which is the cold call. So the cold call typically goes like this. It's like, hey, Mike. Or I'll call and say, hey, is this Mike? Great. Hey, this is Dane Espegard. You don't know me personally, but I own some mobile home parks. And I came across your name. I saw that you own blank park. I was wondering if it might be for sale. And they usually say, by the way, a lot of them say, screw off. We get calls, not for sale, whatever. But you occasionally get people that are like, well, I mean, it not really, which means we're open. right? And you'll also have people that say, everything's for sale at the right price, right? So then you build a little rapport, and I usually will share my story. So I would always say, so, hey, Mike, just so you know who I am, I'm not some big group that's calling. It's just my father-in-law there. He lives in Omaha. I live when I was doing this, I live in Minneapolis. And so for the first park, I said, we've been looking to buy our first park. My wife and I are expecting our first child, and we found the mobile home park industry, and we're really excited to get involved. And so we were, on the hunt for our first one. So I came across yours, and I thought, hey, this looks like a good park for me to kind of learn on. Do you mind if I ask you a couple questions? And then that gives me an in on, are they open to having a conversation or not? Right? If they say, sure, all the questions I want to know on a mobile home park are how many tenants do you have? What's the lot rent? And do you pay most of the utilities? And then I can crunch some numbers fast, right? Like on the phone. And then, typically negotiation 101 is get them to share a price, right? So, if they'll say, well, what are you thinking? And I usually would say, well, hey, what would be the amount that you would need to sell it? And that sometimes works to get them to say, I don't know, I was thinking around. And this guy, I had just made a call, and the guy was like grossly overpriced, like 10x over. And then this guy, I called when I asked, what were you thinking? He said, probably 350. And I was like, 350. I needed to clarify. I was like 350,000. He's like, yeah. I'm like, I think we could probably get there. Right. But I was shocked. I was like, this is great. But the conversations typically go pretty quick. And people want to buy from a person. This is something I think is so important. I was on the phone with somebody that I made an offer on his storage facilities, and I was talking about who I am, who my partner is, why we want to buy storage, what our connection to the area is. We talked for 30, 45 minutes and had a great conversation. I said, perfect. Well, I'll send you a formal offer, and you talk to your partner, and then we'll see if we can go from there. And that relationship is really, if they can hear that you're a real person, hear your story, that makes a big difference.
Wow. I mean, thank you for going into so much detail, Dane. I think so good and simple too, right? Like that's a pretty simple strategy that anyone can execute. So run with it. I'm sure that there's a lot of nuance in finding those deals, knowing who to call, evaluating the deals, evaluating the pricing. And that's where, some mentorship and some leadership can come into play from someone like yourself or Justin. But just thanks for giving the goods here to the audience today. I'm curious about, family here before we start to move towards the end here, Dane, and ask our big three questions that we always ask our guests. You're somebody who, really prioritizes your family. We're a part of a similar dad's group, and I'm sure that you do a lot of intentional parenting with your kids. And also you really work on your thriving marriage with Brooklyn. I'm curious, talk a little bit about, this journey with your family and living the dreams with your family. And I think that also includes your move to Texas, right? Because that was a big step, especially being away from kind of your headquarters, if you will, up in Minneapolis. So, if you don't mind kind of sharing a little bit about that, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, family is so important. If family's not right, nothing else can be right. And so we have three amazing little girls, Elin, Izzy, and then we just welcomed Sunny into the world. She's like 9 weeks old right now. And so girl dad.
I didn't realize that. Congrats, man. That's huge.
Three-peat on the girl dad. So, I mean, Brooklyn and I have been doing the dream stuff annually. We'll go through our dreams list together and we map out the year. And so we'll each pick like, hey, these are the dreams I want to do. These are the dreams she wants to do. And then we do this at the end of the year, and we'll set our schedule for the next year around each of our dreams. And the idea behind that is that we're each individually having an amazing year that's going to light us up. And then we'll typically within that, there'll be some travel ones that we want to do as a family, maybe some that are on her list, some that are on my list. Last year we went to Dolly Parton's, what is it? I don't know, like Dolly World or whatever. That'd been on her list.
Dollywood.
And that's what it is. And so, but yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff, it gives us direction on what we're building towards. And so, the idea of we moved to an area outside Austin, Texas. We've got horses on property right now, which is what my wife's big dream was. And then she has other dreams within the horses that, she wants to compete and do some stuff. So she's like, that's where her energy goes, is a lot of that. It also, that's not a cheap hobby. And I think if we didn't have the terminology in this conversation around dreams, it would be difficult for me to be on board with that. So I'd be like, you want to spend how much on this? But when we have this common language centered around like, well, this is my dream. Like this is what fills me up and really engages me in here, in full body. And so because of that, it's a lot easier for me to say, yeah, it's hard to put a price on it because this is what for her is so fulfilling. And for me, we have a better relationship when we're both fulfilled. Right. And I think for our relationship, what's been really pivotal is that we don't necessarily rely on the other person to be our source of fulfillment. Right. In other words, we're both pursuing dreams. And because of that, we're able to come together on that, which I think is really powerful for us to be able to have that, common thread in our marriage. But we do.
Thank you so much, Dane.
We have our girls do the dreams lift too, even though they're 6 and 5. And it's a pardon my language, it's a shit show. It's like they just want to own every animal in the world and unicorns and all this, but it's still like they hear the language of dreams often. And I think that's the thing for us is like with young kids, we want them to see us live out our dreams.
It's so good. It's so good. It's something that any listener can go and put this into practice right away by having a conversation. I think you could easily pick up a book and have, an outline. You could just have the conversation. What are some of your dreams? I think it's an easy place to start. Dane, I want to respect your time. I know, hopefully you didn't have a hard stop, but we'd like to ask every guest 3 questions before we part ways. They could be short hitting. And then I know our listeners are going to want to stay in touch. You could tell us where to. So the first question is, what do you think the world needs most today?
Conversation. I think, there's so much polarity right now around the world and every single topic that's out there. And so I just think people need more conversation, real conversation, not, keyboard conversation. I think that would move people in a really positive direction. Very rarely have I had a long conversation with somebody and not liked them more at the end of that.
Love that. What 1 to 3 books would you say you recommend to everybody that you think they should check out?
Yeah, I'm on a Ben Hardy, Dan Sullivan kick right now. So 10X is easier than 2X. I'm not all the way done with it at this point, but that's been captivating for me right now. Earlier in the year, I read Who Not How, same duo. That's been really helpful as I've tried to kind of expand all my businesses this year. That's been a really pivotal part. So I would say those 2. And then I'm looking at my bookshelf right now. I hate to sound cliche, but I think Atomic Habits, I'm sure other people have shouted that book out, but that one to me was an easy read of just like, giving a little bit more structure to habit stacking and some stuff that I feel like I was close to. And that gave me like the polished up version.
It's a great one. We've had all of those and also the Gap and the Gain in there. So great recommendations, yeah. Dane. Third question. What does it mean to you to be better than rich?
I think the answer of it is really the dream stuff, right? For me, it's like, it's not, you hear people talk about it. It's not about the money. I don't think at all it's about the money. It's about what does that do for me? And if it allows me to live a more exciting, purposeful life, like that to me is better than rich, right? It's the relationships and the experiences that I get to participate in.
I love that. If it's not about the money, then it's about the dreams, audience, and it's about you going out and living the life of your dreams. So that's super exciting. Dane, this has been awesome. Thank you so much. I'm sure that everyone's going to want to stay in touch with you and learn more. Maybe check out one of your dreams workshops. I know you have some cool software out for tracking dreams. So where can people stay in touch with you and learn more about the dream movement?
Yeah, so my Instagram, just Dane Espegard for Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. But I've got a website, which is just daneespegard.com. And if people want the book, they can actually get the book for free. If you go to daneespegard.com, I think it's /free gift. And they can get an e-version of the book for free.
My final question is, why is there a rhino on your wall?
uh, I wish there was like a cool story, but when I moved to Omaha, I got a promotion, was making a good amount of money for a young 20 something. I felt like I needed to buy art. So I bought this guy. And then at the time I was dating my wife and she was like, "Oh, that's so cool. I like it." And then we got married. And the second we got married, she's like, "I don't want that in any of them." So she really didn't like it. And this is the only wall that's allowed to live on is in my office. So
Oh, that's awesome, Dane. Dane, thank you so much, brother. It's so good to catch up with you. I know it's been quite some time, and again, just seeing you from the distance and using this platform as a way to reconnect. And Andrew, always asking great questions. And listener, we always appreciate you and your feedback. And assuming this episode helped you, if you're listening to us on Spotify, make your way over to YouTube. We'll have some extra resources there on YouTube for you. And subscribe, leave a rating and review, Apple, Spotify. And as always, remember, leave today better than you found it. Next time, take care.